What is going on, everybody? It just rules back again. Another video, and I'm here to wish you a happy new year as we're officially in the year 2024 by the time that this video will be uploaded. But before we get really into 2024, I'm going to backtrack into 2023, as today's video is going to be a yearly tradition. The WWE/AEW Year-End Awards. Now, I will say, if you read the title, hear what I just said. WWE/AEW. For this year, those are the only two companies I'll be talking about, so I want to put that disclaimer out, because there's great wrestling all around, but I feel that I watched enough WWE and AEW to judge it for this awards, where with New Japan, I ain't watch every show. With Impact, I watch a great majority of the shows. Any other company, I can't name any off the top of my head. That's why I feel it's fair enough for me to only include WWE and AEW. But by the time we come here next year, more than likely, more companies will be added. So I wanted to put that disclaimer out there. But I have 6 categories in front of me. I don't think I'm going to go into great detail with a lot of the things. But if it's something that I feel the need to, I will, because if I went into detail, this would be a long-ass video, and like I already said, there's only 6 different categories. So, the first category, Tag Team of the Year, I feel this is the quickest one to discuss. I have a top 5 and some honorable mentions. Honorable mentions goes to the House of Black and Aussie Open. Aussie Open, I feel that a lot of their work it's kind of forgotten because Mark Davis got injured, but they still did a good job in what we've seen from them, which was mainly on the Ring of Honor side of things. And House of Black, it was kind of weird because they were mainly in trios action all of this year. So, at number 4, I have the Acclaimed. I could say it's a coin flip between who I could have had at 5 between the Acclaimed and the House of Black. But I went with the Acclaimed because they at least did start the year off as AEW Tag Team Champions and became Trios Champions as well, defeating the House of Black. Number 4, I had the Judgment Day. I feel is weird because a lot of their action that was enjoyable and noteworthy came in singles action, but they did end the year as the WWE Tag Team Champions, undisputed Tag Team Champions. Number 3, I have the Usos. Even though they have been broken up for half of the year, they finally main evented a WrestleMania. They had a big-time match at WrestleMania, and they were a big deal. And they also defeated Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa, which I believe they were the first men to pin Roman Reigns in a long time, and that was somewhat of an accomplishment. And number 2, I have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, the other duo that was in the main event of WrestleMania, and carried the tag team division in WWE. It definitely sucked that their title run, I'm not going to say seems forgotten, but I felt a lot more could have been done with it. Winning at number 1, it was kind of obvious. FTR. Tag team wrestling is great, and I feel we had a lot of great tag team matches, but they necessarily weren't with like actual tag teams. That was not the case with FTR. That is their life. That is their story, and they had some great matches and moments throughout the year. So my 2023 Tag Team of the Year was FTR. Next category will be Match of the Year, the other category that I have 5 for. I will mention a couple of honorable mentions. First, Kenny Omega versus El Hijo del Vikingo. El Vikingo's first matchup in AEW, the dream matchup that was proposed and caused a lot of craziness in and out of the ring. I don't know why so many people were complaining about it, but it was a matchup that was a long time coming, and it delivered, and it was kind of like, I'm not going to say it was the Kickstarter of Dynamite this year, having big-time, random-ass matches, because I feel that was kind of the case of every week, but that was the most notable one that stood out. And 2 other honorable mentions include one being Bryan Danielson versus MJF, and the other being Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks. I couldn't decide which one could make the list if one was able to. I feel that I would go with the Starks match mainly because it was more recent, but the recency bias left it as an honorable mention. And number 5, 4 men that I've already mentioned in this: Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos at WrestleMania. It was nice to see tag team action in the main event of WrestleMania. It was nice to see 4 competitors that were well-deserving to be in the main event of WrestleMania. And it just felt like a great combination to it. It wasn't the end of their story, but the story they told in the matchup and leading to the matchup was great and worthy of being at number 5. Number 4, more men that I've already mentioned already. FTR versus Bullet Club Gold in a 2 out of 3 falls match on Collision. This is when Collision has been great since its addition, but this is probably the most notable thing to happen on Collision in its short history. And the thing that I liked about Collision is that it seemed like it had a traditional wrestling feel. And this is just something that it just felt old school. We don't see many 2 out of 3 falls matches. I almost said malls. Falls matches, and this one was one that delivered. And I don't hate 2 out of 3 falls matches, but I feel a lot of times it's like obvious that we're going to get that third fall. But the way that they spread the matchup out and the way that the match happened, it was pretty good. It was also weird because they had a matchup a couple weeks prior that Bullet Club Gold won. I thought that matchup was for the tag titles, and then it wasn't. So it is what it is. Number 3, one of the craziest matches to happen in AEW this year: Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Page at Full Gear. You could also make note of Hangman Page versus Jon Moxley because both matches were a Texas death match, and both matches had a lot of similarities, but I felt the outcome of this one was a bit crazier and noteworthy. Again, might be the recency bias kicking in, but it was a star-making performance for both men in this matchup. And number 2, Gunther versus Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. I will go on record here. I don't think I can name a single bad triple threat match. I would have to really think about it, but like off the top of my head, all the triple threat matches that I've ever seen have been good matches, and this was the antithesis of that. And y'all know me, Gunther is my guy. I love hyping up Gunther, and I will have a chance to hype him up a little bit later, but this is kind of the highlight of his historic Intercontinental title run, defeating his 2 toughest opponents in one night on the biggest stage of them all. And number 1, it's pretty obvious: Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 2 at Forbidden Door. They had a match at Wrestle Kingdom, almost a year to the date now. A couple of days off. But now they had that matchup in front of a audience that is not the New Japan. I was going to say in a traditional audience. I'm tired of saying traditional, but they turned it up. That is the exact best way to put it. And they're 2 of the best competitors in the world, if not the best competitors. And when you're fighting to prove for something, it makes it a bigger deal. And this matchup was my match of the year. And I won't lie to you, I looked at several other lists. I watched several other videos. I don't think I've seen a single list, besides ones that were strictly WWE based. I don't think I saw a single list that didn't have this as their match of the year. Now, we're going on to the Women's Wrestler of the Year. My honorable mention is to Julia Hart. Very much improved this year, but I felt her rise and ascension came way too late into the year, and that the other women I have on this list had more notable moments or more notable time throughout the year. And Julia Hart is starting off 2024 as the TBS champion, so that could add to her 2024 catalog once we come talking about that next year. At number 10, I had Becky Lynch. A very good rivalry with Trish Stratus highlighted a lot of the year for Becky Lynch. It was kind of a laid-back year, and then it got a little bit of a hype to it once she finally captured the NXT Women's Championship and had some good matches and moments in NXT. But I feel that 2024 will be a bigger deal for Becky Lynch as she looks to become the Women's World Champion, which, depending on how you look at the history of that title, she's never... I'm gonna be the asshole to say she's never held that title, and it would be a great matchup to see her and Rhea Ripley. Number 9, I have Charlotte Flair. I felt that this was finally the year that Charlotte Flair has received a lot of criticism over the past number of years just for the amount of times she became women's champion. And while she did become women's champion during this year, she lost it and then never gained it back. And anytime she had a matchup, it was a big deal, or it's a title matchup, and it was always a good matchup. And she had a great matchup with Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, which some argued was the best match of WrestleMania. That's a good thing to argue if in that standpoint. But Charlotte, I felt, had more highlight-worthy stuff than Becky Lynch this year to put her at 9. Number 8, hopefully somebody that is in the top 2, not 2, of 2024, but we'll have to see her come back into action, and that is Jamie Hayter. The AEW Women's Division, I have criticized a lot in my history and talking on my channel. I don't think I've ever criticized anything about Jamie Hayter, and it sucks that she's essentially missed half of 2023 with an injury, and we don't know when she's coming back, but her run as the women's champion was definitely a highlight. At number 7, I have Kris Statlander. It is very ironic that Jamie Hayter's last matchup in AEW was Kris Statlander's first night being back in AEW, defeating Jade Cargill to end her historic TBS title reign. And I could swap places between these two, but I feel it's probably a bit of recency bias. But Kris Statlander had a great TBS title reign that came to an end, and I, again, didn't really criticize anything that Kris Statlander did. I just, the AEW Women's Division, I will get to talking about later. But Kris Statlander coming back, and when she won the TBS title, I was a little bit upset, I won't lie, because I was like, it didn't make the most sense for Jade Cargill to defend the title, but Kris Statlander shut me up by putting on a great TBS title reign. Number 6, Bianca Belair. She's been the top star in the WWE Women's Division the past 2 to 3 years now. And it's kind of a case of like Charlotte, where it's very weird, and we've gotten accustomed to her being in the women's title scene. And I know a lot of fans we're over that, and we want to see something different. But she did hold the championship a majority of this year, put on great matches with Io Sky and Asuka, and she's still a big star in the women's division. Now we get to the top 5. Number 5, this name that I just mentioned, Io Sky, finally became women's champion on the main roster by defeating Bianca Belair after SummerSlam. A lot of people thought, hey, she probably should have won it at Backlash, but better late than never. And I'm going to keep saying what I see a lot of on wrestling social media, Twitter and Instagram mainly. A lot of people criticize Damage Control over its history, but now, when we expected them to break up throughout the summer, they grew even stronger, mainly off the back of Io Sky putting on great matches and becoming the women's champion. And the group has expanded by adding Kairi Sane and Asuka, and Io Sky is kind of at the forefront of the group and carrying the group. At number 4, Hikaru Shida, someone that has been a constant in the AEW Women's Division. She was finally rewarded with having a women's title reign in front of a crowd and having her moments to shine with the championship. Not once, but twice. And again, like I said, she's just a constant in the AEW Women's Division. Number 3, Toni Storm. Now again, I said I'm going to criticize the AEW Women's Division a little bit later, but I will give credit where credit is due. Toni Storm, ever since she is in this new era that I don't know what to properly name it, this new aura she has. I hate using that word, but I felt that was best suited. That the fans are really behind her, and her moments feel a lot better, and it's kind of mainly forget about the main things that I wanted to crap on about her, and that being the Outcast era. But again, Toni Storm became depending on how you count it, a 3-time women's champion this year while being the top star in the AEW Women's Division. And number 2, Rhea Ripley. She's held the Women's World Championship a great majority of this year. She's had a great match with Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. She had the big title defense a couple months ago at Crown Jewel in the Women's 5-Way. She had a handful of matches with Raquel Rodriguez. I came so close to saying Gonzalez. And hopefully, 2024, we see that title reign grow. And at number 1, If you are a subscriber of my channel, you should not be surprised who this is. Now, you heard at the very beginning, I said WWE/AEW. Well, my number one for the Women's Wrestler of the Year is Athena. ROH is under the AEW banner, and it is very funny that Athena's only singles match she had in AEW... She's had 2 AEW singles matches in 2023, and she only won one of them. But like I said, I've watched every damn episode of Ring of Honor. I've watched all the pay-per-views. She main evented 2 Ring of Honor pay-per-views this year, winning both of those matches, carrying the Ring of Honor women's division, carrying the Ring of Honor weekly TV show. I don't know many people that would argue with Athena being at number 1 for the Women's Wrestler of the Year. And I'm pretty sure I announced months ago on one of my ROH reviews, and whenever I do this award show, I was giving her the number 1 spot. So I did forewarn you. Now it is time to talk about the men's side of things. Now I have honorable mentions. Now I know I just gave you all that Swerve. I'll talk about him in a minute. But I gave you the Swerve. Honorable mentions, Will Ospreay. Now, 2023, he had a handful of matches in AEW. If this list was all around wrestling, Will Ospreay would definitely take it because he put on match of the year, quality matches every time he was in the ring, and every time he had a match, it was a big deal. But like I said, I'm strictly counting this for AEW and WWE, and now that he's signed to AEW, he's definitely going to be in the top candidates for this award in 2024. Like I just said, another person, Swerve Strickland. Momentum has carried him all year, mainly over the last couple months and over that big-time matchup with Hangman Page that I just recently said. But the other guys on this list, I feel accomplishment-wise, accomplished a lot more. And someone that has had a lot of momentum all year on the WWE side of things, LA Knight, but accomplishment-wise, the other guys on this list are a little bit higher. Number 10, it is Roman Reigns. I felt it would be a little bit crazy to not have the World WWE Undisputed Champion on the list. I always want to call him World Champion, but Undisputed WWE Champion on the list. But obviously, with the less and less that we see him, it gave me less to work with putting him on this list. But he went over 1,000 days as champion. And anytime that he did have a match, it was a big deal. So he is on the list, but he is on the list at number 10. Number 9 through 6, it is very much, you could swap them out because, again, accomplishment-wise and in-ring action-wise, they were all on equal levels, but here's how I put it. Number 9, Jon Moxley. If there is an episode of AEW Dynamite and it didn't have Jon Moxley on it, something probably felt off with it, but Jon Moxley is one of the hardest working men in the AEW roster. He became international champion this year, but the reign was short-lived because of injury. But Moxley, again, anytime that he will be in the ring, he will be on this list every year. Number 8, I did put Kenny Omega. I loved seeing him in singles action in 2023, and hopefully he gets well soon. I've said that a lot because, I just want that to take place. But I'm glad that we saw for Sparks of 2023 the best bout machine return. Number 7, I had Bryan Danielson. The beginning of the year, he was on his chase becoming AEW World Champion, had match after match through MJF's task with Rouge, Bandito, Timothy Thatcher. Just kind of, that's what we want to see. We want to see Bryan Danielson every week in the ring. And like I said, he had a big-time matchup with MJF. He had a random and big-time matchup with Ricky Starks. We finally saw the dream matchup between himself and Zack Sabre Jr. And then he closed the year off with having a great performance in the Continental Classic that I wanted him to win. That way he could have been Ring of Honor World Champion again. But it didn't happen, and I was satisfied with who did win. Who is, spoiler alert, also on this list. And at number 6, I put Cody Rhodes. Won the Royal Rumble after making his return. I do think it's a little bit crazy that Cody was only back in WWE for like 2 months and then was injured for half of 2022. And then 2023, the ball was rolling and we were seeing him week after week. We were devastated that he did not win the championship at WrestleMania. Hopefully, we do see that take place this year. But I will spend a lot of time talking about the WrestleMania fiasco a little bit later on, but Cody Rhodes had a solid 2023. At number 5, I just said he's on the list. The winner of the first ever Continental Classic, Eddie Kingston. Now, it's weird because a lot of his accomplishments were outside of AEW and New Japan Strong, but a lot of that carried over into AEW and the Ring of Honor product. Like I said, I watch Ring of Honor every week. It is nice to see him get the praise. And then, like I said, he capitalized, winning the first ever Continental Classic. Now, I'm a little bit upset because when the Continental Classic was created and they made note that it's going to be a Triple Crown champion, I was like, whoever's going to win this has to take that picture backstage where they're like holding all the championships. Now, there's not been a proper picture of that. There's a video of him doing a promo. So I would love to have a picture of that because, that's historic and a cool last moment. But video form will do. But Eddie Kingston at number 5. Number 4, another champion in AEW, the international champion who held it a great majority this year. I was going to put a percentage on it, but it would be difficult to do it. Orange Cassidy, again, every week it seemed like he defended this championship over and over and over again. He had a big-time main event matchup with Jon Moxley that I said on the AEW All-Out Predictions video. I'm like, this definitely deserves to be the main event. Orange Cassidy is defending this title every week. This would be a nice chance to reward him. And I'm not going to say the championship reign is tiring, but it felt we were going in a different direction, and now we're going a little bit backwards. But if he's putting on banger after banger again, don't think I should be criticizing it that much. And number 3, the first ever, depending on how you look at the title history, World Heavyweight Champion in WWE, that being Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, again, someone who is probably going to be a constant on the Wrestler of the Year category. Became the first ever World Heavyweight Champion. Had several main event matches with Shinsuke Nakamura. He had several good matches with Finn Balor. It kind of felt weird because I'm pretty sure several of the predictions videos like, yeah, I expected him to lose. And then he didn't. And now, the day that I'm uploading this, he's got a big-time matchup with Drew McIntyre. And will he face CM Punk this year for that World Championship? Hopefully we see that at WrestleMania. Also, just realized, CM Punk's not on this list. Should he have made this list? That's a great discussion to have. Now, someone who did make this list, at number 2, MJF was AEW World Champion literally all of this year except for one damn day, that being the last day of the year. And I know there's been a lot of criticism on him and his character as a face and how his matchups delivered. And again, I don't think I've ever said anything bad about the title reign. It was just that a lot of the things they did during the title reign was questionable, like having him beat Jay White the way that he did and whatnot, but we don't have to worry about that anymore. But I did say that if MJF wrestled at Final Battle, he would have had the number 1 spot. He ain't wrestled at Final Battle. He's going to have to settle being at the number 2 spot. But like I said, main evented several AEW pay-per-views, put on his best matches with Bryan Danielson, and you can even say with Adam Cole, unless you're a big fan of the CM Punk rivalry, you probably would argue that. But being AEW World Champion a great majority of the year and having more matches than Roman Reigns, I know that's kind of, again, could have been a bigger debate to have, but I felt it was worthy of being at the number 2 spot. And again, if you know me, you know who's at number 1. Gunther, longest reigning WWE Intercontinental Champion. I already named the highlight of the year for him, defeating Drew McIntyre and Sheamus at WrestleMania. Defending the damn title every week, and very rarely, if ever, losing a matchup. And I do think he is either going to be, spoiler, 2024 Wrestler of the Year is either going to be Gunther or Will Ospreay, maybe Swerve Strickland, maybe even CM Punk. But hopefully the World Heavyweight Championship is in Gunther's future. But to make the Intercontinental Championship at the level that it is, and to be number 1, it should be in his future. And now we get to depending on how you look at it, I kind of mashed them together, the last category, the best and worst of the year. I'm going to start off with, so I have 4 for each, I'm going to start off with the worst and then we're going to interchange them. That way we end on a high note. The first thing I will say, everything in the worst of category have all been things I have bitched and moaned about on the channel. At number 4, I spent a whole almost hour talking about this the night after WrestleMania. I guess you can even say that like 24-hour period where Roman Reigns retained and we made it to the next night on Raw and Brock Lesnar was flipping. I was going to flip y'all off, but I'm not. I'm going to be generous. It's a new year. And it just, I guess the main complaint would be the night after Mania. Because if you remember, there's a lot of rumor that one Vinnie Mac had returned, and the way that the show was booked, it kind of felt like an older episode of Raw, not one that we saw in the Paul Levesque era. And it just, I said it at the time, I'm like, if this was any other episode of Raw, it would have been a good episode. But it being the night after Mania, and especially, I remember watching a damn commercial before the show. I said, the biggest night of the year, lots of surprises, anything can happen. And little to no surprise, nothing historic, crazy happened on the episode of Raw, and it sucked. And again, a lot of the critique I had was like, why the hell did Brock Lesnar turn? I was worried what the hell they were going to do with Cody Rhodes throughout 2023. Now, I'll give them credit because the fans have not turned on Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is still on a good track to win, or on the roads to still win the World WWE Championship again. I'm going to keep calling it the World title. I don't know why. I think because I don't even know where the hell it's at. My World Championship, it says World Heavyweight title, and it's still the same damn title, and it's on a black strap. It's just not the one that Roman holds out. You get the point I'm making. But at number 4, I put the night after Mania. Just that whole fiasco of the ending of WrestleMania and the whole episode of Raw, I hated. And again, I talked about it for almost an hour on an episode of Shooting the Breeze. But at number 4, a late entry, the Continental Classic. AEW has been under a lot of criticism this year, but you cannot say that about their in-ring action. And the Continental Classic kind of was the antithesis of that because there's no bullshit with the endings of the matches. No people were allowed at ringside. It was just based on the in-ring product, which is AEW's strong suit, and is something that we'll look forward to every year from now on, hopefully. And like I said, it was a late entry. And number 3, for the worst of side, the AEW Women's Division / The Outcast. Again, I've bitched and moaned about it. I will give AEW credit now because my main complaint was we keep seeing the same title reigns taking place, and we keep seeing the same people challenging for the championships. And as of World's End, we saw 2 different competitors challenge for the TBS and Women's Championship with Abaddon and Riho. So I'll give credit there. But that does not make up for a great majority of the year it just being random 4-way number 1 contenders matches involving the same competitors. It would normally be Britt Baker, Toni Storm, Ruby Soho, or Saraya, and Nyla Rose. It just was the same shit every week. I hated it. The Outcast stuff, again, it was kind of would just be Toni Storm and Ruby Soho versus another random ass tag team, and then just it was the same shit over and over again. And I absolutely hated it. And I'm glad that we're kind of seeing a different and new direction with the women's division. And hopefully it becomes more improved because we're 5 years into AEW. And I don't know a lot of people that are satisfied with the product of the women's division in AEW has been given. I'm not going to put it all on them. And definitely they don't deserve a majority of the blame. But they're the ones that we see out there. They're the ones that get the blame. But I apologize for that. Number 3, this is a cop-out for the good side. In my opinion, I went through all the pay-per-views on Wikipedia, and I don't think there is a single bad one from WWE or AEW. In AEW's case, they had less, but Revolution, Double or Nothing, Forbidden Door, All In, All Out, Wrestle Dream, Full Gear, World's End, I felt all good shows. Double or Nothing, I feel, is the one that you could kind of go back to. And most of the card was just quiet and nothing like stood out as the greatest thing you'll ever see. But from years past where there are things that have been like that. I felt it was decent. WWE side of things, great ass stretch of Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, 2 nights of WrestleMania. Out of the years they've been doing the 2 nights of WrestleMania, we had great match of the year quality matches on all of them. I keep hearing something, and it keeps distracting me. I also want it to be known that I had to wait like 2 to 3 hours to film this because they kept doing fireworks because, again, it's New Year's. But this is the first year that we've done 2 nights of WrestleMania, and people have been satisfied with them. Then we had Backlash, which was a fun, different show environment in Puerto Rico. We had Night of Champions, which will crown the first World Heavyweight Champion. Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, Payback, Fastlane. Again, you can kind of critique those shows, but then with them going by so quickly because they were shorter shows, I'm not going to criticize them at all. Crown Jewel, and then, of course, the Survivor Series. I just felt neither company had a bad pay-per-view all around, and it was a great stretch. And again, I think for WWE, the international aspect and just seeing different audiences and environments that we normally see and will be continuing in 2024 was also a plus. Now we get to the worst of in number 2. Now, I will say this. This is going to be extremely controversial because I've had this list wrote out for months. The only thing that I had different was the match of the year because I didn't fill out match of the year until after World's End because I wanted to see what happened on the World's End card. Spoiler alert, nothing was added. So, if you've been on wrestling Twitter, and again, I'm just going to apologize in advance because I know it's going to upset someone. But I had this planned prior to World's End, and before and after World's End, it definitely deserves to make the list. And at number 2, I have Chris Jericho. Now again, if you know what is out there in the wrestling world, it is a serious situation that does not involve wrestling. And I say it time and time again, I like to talk about the actual stuff that we see in the wrestling ring and on the screen product. So I'm not going to dwell into that. But that is a shitty situation that is happening that should be dealt with. I will say that first and foremost. So everything that I am saying, though, is from the on-screen stuff. And Chris Jericho just did not have a good 2023, in my opinion. He had 2 of the rising and big stars in AEW have rivalries with him, with Ricky Starks and Adam Cole, and we were ready for those 2 guys to move on to something different. The JAS broke up, and they just all stuck together, and they just got away from Jericho. Again, this is a good idea now. And then he had a matchup with Will Ospreay at All In, which a lot of people are mad about. We're like, no, give us somebody else for him to face. And now everything that I have in this worst of category, I've made videos or I've discussed on the channel before. I've hated the damn Golden Jets. I hated it. And that is what we've been seeing the past couple of months. But, like I said, I apologize if I upset with anyone with putting this on there. I don't like talking about things that no one really knows about. But there is an actual issue out there, and I would love to see the issue be resolved. But, like I said, I had this planned prior to the events of World's End, and the day of World's End, I guess is the better way to put it. And that day, it needed to be added on here. And like I said, everything that I talk about on this channel is mainly things that I see and is in the ring actual wrestling related. So, there is that. Number 2 on the best of side, we saw history be made all around AEW and WWE. We saw the longest reigning TBS title reign in Jade Cargill come to an end. I guess I should say history made and broken all throughout the year. We saw MJF become the longest reigning World Heavyweight Champion. Orange Cassidy, longest reigning International Champion. AEW had All In, which is one of the largest wrestling events of all time. WWE side of things, I've said it 80 times. Gunther became the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. Roman Reigns was World Heavyweight Champion for 1,000 days. I don't know if the Usos broke the longest reigning tag team title reign this year or at the end of 2022, but it still qualifies. It was a long-ass title reign. We saw history made all around. We should appreciate that. But now we get to the number one and the best and worst of category, and they coincide together. And I've not decided what is going to be the thumbnail of this video, but more than likely it'll involve this situation. The worst of the year was CM Punk in AEW, and the best of the year was CM Punk returning to WWE. Now, again, I just said I like to talk about the things that actually we know and we actually see. And with the CM Punk and AEW situation, there's a lot of we don't know what happened, but it gets put out into the open and on the air in some cases, and it just ends terribly. I made a whole 30-plus minute video talking about CM Punk's AEW time period, and in just the year 2023, it was a mess in the AEW side of things. We debated the first 6 months of the year, debating if he was going to come back or if he should come back, with just anybody and everybody had to have 2 cents in talking about the crap. Then Collision was announced. Then Collision was announced in Chicago. And then CM Punk was announced for it. It came out, took shots at people. Then, I'm trying to freaking cut this light off. We just kept getting more and more bullshit. That is the best way to describe it. And it ultimately came to a halt at All In with a brawl that, again, we did not see, but it was confirmed and we know happened in some way or fashion. And it ended his time period in AEW way before it probably should have. But it opened the door to something that we did not think that we would see. And that was him returning to WWE. And as we go right now, everything is happy-go-lucky. Nothing to really complain about. Nothing really to worry about. But it's always sad that we're going to have that little thought in our mind that, oh, we might. I'm not even going to worry. I personally don't have that, but I know that everybody is egging it on. No, why? We don't need to do it. But CM Punk returning to WWE, it just felt like the cherry on top, because both companies are doing very well, but WWE is on a roll when just over the past couple of years, people want to crap on them. And WrestleMania this year will be a big deal, and the year 2024 will be a big deal. Like I said, we're 1 day in thus far. Hopefully, these next 366 days. I think this is a leap year. I think it's a leap year. 366 days are very well for all of us. Hopefully, we can all stay safe. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe. Let me know what your awards and what you agree or disagree with, and what I forgot or maybe should have mentioned down in the comments down below. So, again, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Stay safe. Now, I'd love to see you the rest of 2024.